So I would like to welcome everyone here into our webinar. I would like to thank you, Ian, for joining us tonight. That's a great honor for us to have you.
Thank you, Shereen. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us and to learn from you. You have a great experience and you have been working in many countries with different cultures and with great experience in process industries. So it's great for us to welcome you. Thank you for accepting to share. Thank you for what you're doing with us. And I would like to invite you to share your screen and share your camera. Is it okay? Can you share your video?
Yeah, just clicked on that. Start the video.
Yes, first of all, would you introduce yourself? Give us a little bit about your experience and your background.
Yeah, sure. I'm Ian Evans. I'm from the UK. I graduated in mining engineering from Leeds University in the UK in 1986 and joined what was then British Steel, which was a very large nationalised steel industry company with multiple sites. I joined the operation in the Spundorp site within the steelmaking department. I've always been in the steel industry for almost 35 years now. So 1986 to date is almost 35 years of various levels. I joined as a graduate entrant into the steel industry on the operations, the production side. And I've progressed through various levels, starting with like a shop floor supervisor level on shifts, which I think was a very influential and valuable part of my my career, my learning experience, both in the technical side of understanding, but also the managerial side of people and how to get things done and what motivates people on the shop floor. I left British Steel, went to work in Ireland for Ispat International, which is now part of what is ArcelorMittal, the largest steel company in the world. Unfortunately, the plant in Ireland is now closed. I rejoined British Steel, which was then part of a larger group, Chorus, after a merger with a Dutch steel company. I then left and went to Abu Dhabi for a new government project for a steel plant, and again a very different experience there because previously I'd worked in established plants with a very much a British or Irish culture. Abu Dhabi was very different, multinational workforce, and a very different environment completely, and also a new company and a new plant, and very different challenges to what a previous experience. But the technical side was always going to be very key, but you need lots of other aspects as well. I then went to work in Bahrain on a similar startup of another plant, and then I came to Egypt 4 years ago, 4 years ago today, when I joined Egyptian Steel, again for a new startup of a steel plant, and again what was effectively a new company. And I finished with them. The plant was ramped up and stable, and handed over to local management. So I'm now doing some consulting whilst looking for a new challenge somewhere else. But it's difficult times, as I'm sure people have experienced themselves, with especially to search for a new position. So that is me. I have a lot of experience, 35 years in very much frontline operations. And I'd like this presentation really just to share with you my perceptions, my my experiences, not from a technical side, but from a more reflective side of where I see some of the challenges, some of the problems, and hopefully can you can relate to many of the issues that I will discuss.
Continue.
Okay, so I will move into the presentation, and I guess the starting point is within operational excellence. Why do we why is it a requirement? And again, there's a well-known phrase that I've included on that slide. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. That phrase has been credited to be originated from a number of different people, maybe in various forms, but Albert Einstein was one of those. Mark Twain, I believe, also, and Henry Ford from Ford Motor Company. But it's not a difficult phrase to understand. But I guess my question is, is that phrase, is it true or false? And from my experience, it's both. It is true if you always do in your process, in your manufacturing operations or in your business operations, what you've always done, maybe internally, you will always get the same results. If you have problems and you don't solve them, those problems will recur and they will come back and they will continue to cause problems. So in that respect, it is very true. But in a business respect, if you always did what you always, if you always do what you always did, your competitors will not. Your competitors will. They will innovate. They will improve. They will get better. They will overtake you. So if you always do what you always did, you will lose your market share. You will lose your competitive edge, and you will be overtaken by competitors or new entrants into a business. So that's my justification for saying that phrase is both true and false. But the false part is probably the most important, and that is the reason that operational excellence, continuous improvement are always going to be relevant in any business environment, any manufacturing environment. So I think we've defined that there's always a need to improve. If you stand still, you will get overtaken. So where do we start? Continuous improvement, artificial. There's a number of modern day slogans, phrases, and topical terms out there, and I'm sure, like me, you can add another 5, 10, or whatever of different ones there. It's like learning a new language in many respects, especially when you start adding some of the Japanese phrases that comes as part of some of the lean manufacturing terms. But the good news is, even though I'm no expert in any of those operational excellence tools or techniques, but I have a lot of experience in operations, so many of those are just a way of formalizing and structuring what is a common sense approach to solving problems and improving your business. One of the under the heading of continuous improvement, one of the ones I particularly like is Toyota's 8-step problem-solving process. And again, like I said before, those phrases, while they may be daunting and you think, well, yeah, I've heard of it, I know a little bit about it, but I'm not an expert, which I claim not to be. But at the end of the day, most of them are just common sense, and people will be carrying out a lot of those steps, a lot of those techniques and tools subconsciously. But it's a way of formalizing what is always good management practice. And again, the 8 steps there, I won't go through the 8 steps, but clearly it's a logical it's a logical methodology to improving your operations, your business. And there's a couple of key ones I'd like to pick out, mainly because they are big ones, but also I think they are very key ones to. They're all key, but these are very key ones, and I will explain why when I move on to the next 2 slides. So step 1, clarifying the problem. So how do you clarify what your problem is? What is hurting your business? What is an obstacle to you improving your performance? Whether that is in terms of productivity, in terms of financial performance. And again, it's not as easy. Those steps sound straightforward, but the actual process and thought and understanding that goes into choosing the right solutions is quite complex, and there are many pitfalls along the way. And again, just going through some on the list there, delay analysis. And again, I've come from a process industry, and inevitably, as with any process, there are delays, whether it's operational, mechanical, electrical, or whatever that may be. And again, any company should, and most do, record their delays in quite a detailed way. But there are pitfalls in using delay analysis, because it can also be misleading. Unfortunately, human beings work in many different ways. There are many different traits from human beings. They're amazing pieces of machinery, and the mind is also a very complex computer. But they have their limitations and sometimes their shortfalls. And again, from my experience, and I'm sure it's an experience shared by many others, people are generally, not always, quite defensive. So, for example, if there's been a problem in a certain area of a process, part of the plant, people tend to say, well, no, it wasn't really this, that bad, or it wasn't my fault, it was something else, or whatever. And many people will not always be honest, and they will try to push delays and misreport delays, sometimes hide delays. And again, it's something that if you're not careful, you can get delay analysis, which is not really giving a true reflection of where the problems are, and it should not be the only part of defining where your problem areas are, and that's even before you start to clarify why those problems are happening. So another way of trying to improve your business is, what are your process bottlenecks? Identifying your process bottlenecks and tackle those bottlenecks, and then progressively you de-bottleneck, and then you get a continuous improvement in your productivity. Again, what are creating the quality faults, the high reject levels or rework levels? What are the causes of those? High consumption rates for raw materials, or some other electricity, or whatever, gas, whatever your process may be. Low yields. Yields are a big financial loss if you're losing yield. And again, another difficulty there with many industries, certainly within the steel industry, is how do you measure yields? And there are different methodologies. It sounds a simple, straightforward practice, but there are different ways of also measuring yields. And benchmarking. You benchmark against, again, the steel industry where I've come from is a global industry, and you can benchmark against many different companies. But again, as with people, many companies also like to give a defensive approach, and they will benchmark and they can tweak the numbers, or to not exactly report apples for apples. So everybody likes to give a rosy picture. But really, to gain the real improvements, everybody needs to be honest and define what the real problems are, not what people want you to necessarily relieve. And cost reduction. Okay, you maybe the initiation of some investigation is, where can we improve? Where can we improve the finances? Maybe that's a change in raw material prices, so you need to tweak the operation of your process to try to minimise some big increase in maybe electricity, or some refractory for the ceiling ceramic. New technology. There's always new technology emerging, and I guess that in today, the rate of new technology in various forms that can help your process is faster than it's ever been, and I guess that acceleration will continue ad infinitum. And maybe you just improve an improvement challenge. Maybe you have not got any real bottlenecks, you have not got any big delays in your company, but as we said at the beginning, if you stand still, people will overtake you. So often it's good to initiate some challenge to say, okay, we have not got a real problem that's hurting us hard, but where can we improve regardless of that? And again, back to the 8-step process improvement steps. And the other key one I wanted to talk about was root cause analysis, or analysing the root cause. Again, it sounds fairly straightforward, but it's not always straightforward. But to me, this is a key to solving the problem and achieving the goals, both in identifying what are the causes of the problems, but also in ensuring that you put in the right solutions to solve the problem, and monitor that the problem has been solved, or at least improved. And this is an area that in my experience, is a major failing with many people and organisations as well. And again, I think it goes back to people's often defensive reactions. People tend to try to hide a problem rather than be open and honest about a problem quite often, and that is always a recipe for the problems existing longer than they should be doing. And again, it's it happens with many people. I've sat with many people in meetings with multi-department management team, and they report problems for the previous day, and they said, yeah, we had this problem, and you say, well, why did that problem happen? They will give an immediate cause of the problem, but that doesn't explain what was the and that will often be a symptom of the problem rather than what has caused the problem. And again, there are many tools and techniques that are available through some of the continuous improvement systems that can help people do root cause analysis, but ultimately it needs to be a culture that people, you can't afford to have a classroom, a workshop somewhere off-site, or a day, just for low-level problems that happen. People should instinctively start to think, well, why did that problem really happen? Not what was just the immediate cause, what were the underlying root cause of the problem. And it's something which is a very frustrating thing to see when you ask people who are responsible people, more expert in their areas of plant than maybe yourself as a general manager. And they fail to really even understand that the root cause of a problem is not just the immediate activity before it. Moving on, okay. And again, the solutions in both, well, to identify problems, and again, in quite a technical process industry, a very heavy engineering, both from an automation perspective, from a mechanical engineering perspective, an electrical perspective. The steel industry is a heavy industry. There's many technical aspects to it, and nobody's expert in all of those. But always evolving technology, always things happening, and always people that are leapfrogging each other. So a good source of information to understand what other people are doing, what technology is emerging, and needs to be considered. Industry journals, okay, maybe losing popularity with the days of the internet, but a lot of information is still available from industry journals, whether companies or from institutions. The internet, it's very surprising how much information you can search on the internet. Quite often you would think, a lot of people are quite happy to publish quite sensitive information on the internet. So you can do searches and you can find a lot of innovation, a lot of ideas, a lot of evolving technology by doing internet searches. And again, networking, always the key one. As I said, the steel industry is global, as probably most industries are, and often people are very happy to share their experiences. Recruitment, again, headhunting, if it's a particular expertise in a technical field, or even from an operation process or engineering, then if you've got a particular problem, or you need to introduce some particular technology, then you can headhunt the right people and bring in the people. Conferences, again, often leading edge technology is presented at conferences, and again, all good for the networking. Experience of other colleagues, again, particularly in the latter years of my working overseas, I've joined new companies, and there's a lot of, they're generally new plants where they bought lots, recruiting the workforce. So you get lots of people from different companies with different experiences. So, maybe some people have seen these problems before and know the underlying causes, the root cause, and know the solution. So it's always good to to involve everybody, and that's one of the cultures of continuous improvement and operational expertise. Is everybody needs to be involved. This isn't a management only initiative. This is understanding that everybody has a part to play. A manager working hard is nowhere near as effective as a manager getting the best out of 100 people. In-house innovation, again, it's quite surprising how many people at shop floor level, at various levels, have good ideas. You can have a problem and people can often come up with good ideas, rather than something that's already proven elsewhere. People can innovate, and that's always a good motivator to get people to to understand and initiate some ideas themselves. And again, particularly in the steel industry, and I'm sure it applies to many more, equipment or technology providers. Okay, they're always keen to sell their products, their technology, but you know, there are many developments happening, and you know, people that do not keep on top of the new emerging technologies will inevitably fall behind. And again, Shereen, one there for you, Shereen, is the consultants. Everybody likes to think that they're within their organization, they have all the skills and technical knowledge that's required, but often that is not the case, and a good source and bringing in external ideas and external specialists is a good method. But that's the end of my presentation. But basically, technology is king, especially in recent times. You know, a lot of the solutions to understanding where problems, the root cause of problems are, is with technology, and the ways of implementing the solutions. You know, what are the right solutions? Very much technological driven.
So thank you, Ian, for the presentation. Please leave it, and I have like few questions for you, if you allow me.
Okay.
One of the main reasons that I invited you to this event, or to this what we talk about here in the webinar, because you have great expertise, more than 25 years of experience, and you have been working in more than 6 to 7 countries, sites, and you have dealt with many cultures, different people from all over the world, Far East, Middle East, Europe, US, so you name it, right?
Yep.
So I have 2 important questions for you. When you talk about people and improvement and doing and consultations and in-house innovations and technology, and people denying problems, wasting time to justify themselves, not saying the truth, and that makes problems stay long and long. So in process industries in general, main experts or people who are always running the show are maintenance and technical people. Okay. So for me, when I work with maintenance technical people, it's hard to convince them to document what they do, to measure, to have their KPIs, to improve even their workplace. 5S, implementing it in the maintenance workshop is always the biggest challenge. So how do you handle people from maintenance?
Okay, thanks, Shereen. Yeah, I guess really from my experience, and again, everybody is different. You know, everybody's experience are unique. They will have had different personal experiences in their working life, personal characteristics, which maybe with the same situation they will handle things differently. But I think, you know, one of the key things is having a common goal. Yeah, and often, unfortunately, and again, it can be part of an organization structure that you will sometimes get different departments, different functions, say mechanical, electrical, production, having apparently different agendas. You know, maybe the mechanical people, electrical people, their managers may be obsessed with delays. Maybe it's one of their KPIs. Maybe it can be a personal KPI as part of their performance appraisal. So maybe their salary increment will be dependent on their delay percentage at the end of the year when the review is finalized. But, and this is where the people side of process improvement is very important, as well as the technology side, the measuring side. It's the human interface with what that data and what those statistics can give you, which can be misleading. So I think the key one to me is that everybody understands that at the end of the day, or the end of the year, whatever it may be, that everybody has the same objective, and that is to improve the performance of the plant, the operation, the process, or the business result. And it's not the detail of an individual that is important. It's the collective accountability that everybody is working towards the same objective and working for each other, not as not to their own personal objectives and goals. And often I have maybe a pet hate is maybe a phrase that is an accurate reflection of many performance management systems. I I have worked in quite a lot of organizations, large organizations, and I believe, yet to see what I think is a positive personal appraisal system, the annual appraisal system. My net feeling is that they are probably negative rather than a positive influence on the company. In theory, they're very good. You know, you cannot argue against the theory, but in practice, companies do not exercise them very well. But in terms of maintenance, I think that is the key part of it. You cannot afford to have people working against each other. And my approach is they need to be aware that what they do needs to feed into the overall goal, not just the goal of maintenance or some area of maintenance. And that can be very difficult with some individuals.
So are you in favor of that maintenance and production people report to the same manager or director, or you want them separate?
No, I firmly believe that they need to report through the same channel. They ultimately, I have seen engineers who are very proud at the end of the year that they have saved 5-10% of their maintenance budget. Yet the plant has underperformed. The production of the plant is below budget, but the maintenance spend is. But the engineers stick their chest out and they say, "Yeah, we've saved our, we've not spent, we've saved money." So again, there's no clear single answer. It's different people. But for me, if the organisation structure is wrong, then it can tend to lean people towards having their own objectives. But again, I've used the expression many times in my working career. If you have the right organisation structure and the wrong people, it will not work. If you have the wrong organisational structure and the right people, it can work. Obviously, the optimum is right for both. But the right structure without the right people, people will find ways of making it not work.
Okay. Interesting. I like what you say about you might be lucky, which I have seen it in many companies. They don't have the right structure, but they have the right people. Yes, I fully agree with you. Yeah. So one thing it's about before I ask you my second question, someone is asking here to clarify on the organization chart for maintenance and production, same reporting. So can you explain more, please?
Yeah. I firmly believe they need to report through the same level. I think, again, at what level in an organisation should they report to a common manager? And I guess from my experience is probably at the level of general manager. The operation, like a section head level or a plant manager level, should report to the general manager, same as the production head of the plant as well, or production section head. So I have worked in organisations, including British Steel, where they had an engineering structure that reported through engineering all the way to an engineering director for the whole of the company. This is a company with multiple sites, maybe employing 40,000 people in the UK. So they have a head of engineering. So, my experience of that, again, I'm a production guy, not a maintenance guy. But from a production side, I think that is a very bad strategy, because it undermines they are getting directions and they are reporting through a maintenance side, which is not accountable for the operational performance of the plant, and everybody should be working towards the same. So very firmly, they need to report to one head, and the production, the operations is the driver.
Okay. So I would like to ask you another question before I just start with reading questions. You have been dealing with people from different cultures, maybe 30, 40 countries all over the world, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned about people not saying the truth, avoiding, and there are differences. So how could you manage cross cultures? Because you have been working in many countries. So can you explain how you manage cross cultures, please?
Yep. And again, just to clarify from my presentation, I'm not accusing everybody out there who works in process industries of being liars and cheats and deceitful. I'm just saying there are sometimes people who will tend to be defensive. It's not a huge scale problem, but the impact of those attitudes and those traits can be very damaging. So yeah, please don't take me wrongly that everybody out there is a cheat. That's not the case at all. The vast majority of people
No, 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 no. Yes, we should
are honest
explain this,
people who work very
clarify.
hard.
Yeah, we should
So
clarify. Okay, for sure. So I
yeah.
apologize if I
No,
misinterpreted.
I just my apology because I maybe didn't make that clear. I maybe put an overemphasis on that in the part of the presentation. Yeah, in terms of working in different countries with different nationalities, different cultures. In my experience, no matter where you are, even working in the UK, you get many different cultures, many different personalities, and you know, in a process industry, and maybe I've got a cross section of people, who work in the steel industry, the process industry. Maybe that attracts certain people of certain personalities, or it evolves people into certain ways of working and thinking. So working in one industry, even though it's in a multinational, multicultural environment or environments and locations, doesn't mean you've met the full cross section of people who across the whole spectrum of industry or business. But yeah, I have found very much in my experience that the personalities of people are not that different. The cultures of people are not that different. And the overriding factor is if you can motivate people and energize people into the cause, which is getting a new plant up and running. Everybody's, no matter where they're from, no matter what their culture, everybody is proud to be successful. So if you can get people motivated towards the success of the plant and the business, then generally people will very much behave the same. And in any plant, in any industry, any part of the world, you will have a mix of people, no matter where they're from. You will have some very, very good motivated people, some very good technical people, some people who work hard, some people who don't work hard, some people who aren't interested. Some days, some people are, some people aren't. But there's always a cross section. So, the process industry and managing people, in a heavily, it's a high, high headcount in the process industry, like steelmaking. It's dynamic. You have to work with the people you've got. Okay, you'd like to think if you haven't got the right people, you can recruit the right people. That is not always the case for a number of reasons. So, but yeah, there are good people and bad people and everywhere in between in any organization. So, but culturally, I think everybody is still very proud to work and motivate. And if they're not, then those people have to be identified and motivated, or if not, then ultimately you cannot afford to carry people, because as we said at the beginning, if your business does not improve, your business will fail.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. But some countries you find people come from some cultures are very good in maintenance, and some are good in operations, some are good in quality, some like to think. So it's I am pro multicultural, having people, and that's what I learned over the years of work, especially working in Gulf countries and in Egypt and Europe and many other places. Multicultural always helps. Are you pro or against multicultures?
I am very much for multiculture. I have found, and again, whether it's true that people from certain nationalities or whatever have certain technical skills, I don't know. I have met very good electrical people, certainly well beyond my knowledge and understanding of electrical side and automation, that are from the UK, that are from India, that are from Egypt. So, I don't have any real strong belief that one nationality is particularly good at any particular skill set. So, I've always found, again, in Egypt has quite a big steel industry. So, There are people with a range of skills and experience, but it's always very good to have people's experience from different backgrounds. And I think one of the failings, and I would say failings because British Steel has had many challenges, but it's gone in 40 years from being a world leader really to a struggling company which is still in decline. And I think one of their failings is they've been too insular. They've been they've had a mindset and they've not been open to change in a very much changing world.
Yeah, and that's very hard to be the top and you fail. That's very hard.
Yeah, many factors, macro and micro level, but it's been a very difficult, challenging environment from a European steel producer with raw materials now, the right raw materials are not in-house. They used to come from the UK, now they're all imported. Energy prices, wage prices are high, so they've got many challenges, but ultimately I'm sure whatever they did, they could have never maintained their position as one of the world leaders. But I think the decline has been made worse by some significant failings in the mentality of the company.
Okay. So I think it's. I would like to thank you. So shall we go for questions from attendees, please? Okay. There is a tough question. How to reduce cost of operations?
Yeah, and again, I think there are methodologies there, like the Toyota 8-step. If you identify your problem, then hopefully you can identify the root cause or root causes and you can put in solutions. Many improvements to a plant, from maybe over a 12-month period are not due to single massive improvements. They are incremental. They're a combination of many different things. So I think it's having the right culture, the right attitude involving everybody, because many of the ideas can come from the shop floor. It's not a one-man show. As the head of operations, the general manager, the CEO, whatever you are, you're reliant completely on motivating the whole of the organization. And as I said before, some people are more motivated than others, but again, what motivates somebody may not be motivating for somebody else. So it's involvement of everybody. It's culturally a habit in your company, not just something that suddenly one day you say, yeah, we've got this problem, we will have a workshop, we will do a root cause analysis and we will solve this problem. You cannot do those every day. You rely on having that mentality, that approach, which is constantly there. It is inherent in people within your organization. And that is not something that can be developed overnight, but it's something that needs to be encouraged and rewarded and worked on. Because if you don't get that engagement of people throughout the organization, you will always have problems that you do not even know about.
Yeah. So I would like to add as well that it's always cost reduction or cost of operation is endless. So you have to challenge everything, but be careful when you reduce maintenance cost. As Ian mentioned, some people claim that they saved something and they are hurting the business badly. So another question, do you apply operation excellence in supply chain? If you allow me, Ian, to handle this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Usually operation excellence is handled everywhere in the business from end to end. You start from taking the order till delivery. Big companies like steel, cement companies, medium-sized companies like food, FMCG, beverage, all process industries, discrete manufacturing, everyone always has big opportunity in supply chain. It's bigger than what you could imagine. We usually calculate the total cost of running the whole supply chain in the organization in terms of planning, of logistics, of shipping, customs clearance, warehousing cost, financing cost. And these areas, we start challenging the cost and look at our zero-based cost and how much extra cost are we paying. And we look at opportunities for operation excellence. Typically, we do value-add, non-value-add analysis like lean. We use some tools like business process engineering. In supply chain, we use a SCORE framework, supply chain operation reference. We use the right KPIs, we challenge the business, and we look at the waste. Unfortunately, supply chain is full of waste, but it's hidden. It's different from manufacturing, because manufacturing, you can see the waste easier, you can manage it, you can measure it. But for supply chains, there are some KPIs and performance attributes which you need to tackle and focus on. And you should have, even in supply chain, we have a pillar in operations management called supply chain innovation, because you always have to think and find ways to save and plan and improve. You have to carry inventory, but you still have to reduce it. So you have to find the optimum way for you. So it's a big thing, and we can have a webinar for it if you like, in operation excellence and supply chain. So another question for you, Alan. What would be the right approach when there is a challenge between continuous improvement teams and plant management team? At a certain point, there will be a conflict between both parties. From your experience, how should conflict be managed? How such a conflict should be managed? So, when you have... Yeah.
This question's for me, Shereen, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess fundamentally there should not be a conflict between continuous improvement and the plant management. Everybody has the same objective, which is to improve the business and make the business most cost efficient and productive. I guess I'm not sure what examples of conflict are meant in the question.
Yes, let me explain. People in productions, they like to claim the victory for themselves. Operations, they don't, and they don't like to be blamed. Exactly as you mentioned earlier, they are not trusting or confident that their top management, when they come and say the problems and collaborate with continuous improvement and talk about losses they used to have for years, and now they are supposed to reduce it. So sometimes people are afraid that top management will blame them or will tell them, why didn't you do it years ago? Why did you have to wait? And these things, like for changeover, for example, change of dies, okay? Or you change a mold, or shift startup time.
Yes, SMED and all that. Yeah, I've been through that. I guess this is to do with people's approach. Okay, you cannot turn the clocks back. It's better to have an improvement. Better late than never. And again, an operations environment, a manufacturing environment, is always very busy, and not everything. Nobody can be perfect. You can get specialists. You can home in on any. You can interrogate any particular area, and you can find improvements. But it's always a compromise when you're in charge of an operation or a supervisor or even a shop floor operator. You have to get the overall best performance, and there are areas that are not always perfect. If you've got an additional resource that can spend some dedicated time looking at one particular area and concentrating on an improvement, then that's a support for the operational management of the plant. If it's continuous improvement is not a bolt-on extra. It's an integrated part of the plant management, the operation of the plant. So if it's an additional, and in my experience of continuous improvement, if you set up a dedicated team under the umbrella of continuous improvement, you do not take operators out of the process. You have to have the right number of people to operate the process. So if you have an extra resource of a continuous improvement team who can have the time to analyze and troubleshoot particular areas and make some improvements, and that is not a bad reflection of people who have operated the plant previously. It's an improvement to the plant, and I think that's how it should be taken, not necessarily then criticized for saying, it's obvious, why didn't you do that, sometime previously.
I think it's a leadership issue, Ian, if you allow me to add, because some companies, the leaders and the plant directors and the GMs, they put it in the performance appraisal as a target for operation people. They put them, they have to do this number of projects and kaizens and improvement a year. So they force them to collaborate with continuous improvement. And management, when they give reward and recognition for operators and realize it and encourage it, I think this helps a lot. It's a leadership issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's got to be handled in the right way. If it's handled badly, then it can have a negative a demotivating impact rather than a positive impact.
Okay, perfect. So to move to another question, one is talking about how can we calculate cost-benefit situation for some important projects like 5S, you know, the Japanese 5S?
Yeah.
Especially when top management is not a technical man. 5S and cost-benefit.
In terms of precise numbers, then that's an impossible task in my view. In my experience, you cannot measure always the improvements that you will get, and often you can do a modification to part of a process, some equipment, and that can have beneficial impact in areas that you didn't expect, or maybe less of a beneficial impact in the area you expected. But you know, continuous improvement as a philosophy, as a mentality, is one improvement can then lead to another improvement. Whether that eliminates a bottleneck, and then the next bottleneck is then highlighted more because that's causing you more of a delay. It becomes the apparent bottleneck, and you can then solve that. So I think to try to be, you know, very accurate and tangible in terms of measuring how much an initiative or a particular technological solution may offer. I know it's difficult, and managerial people will always say, well, you're asking for so much money of an investment as a resource. I want to know how much payback it's going to give. You have to try to be realistic. You have to try to be as accurate as you can. But equally, from a senior management perspective, if you stifle people's attempts and initiatives at trying to improve things because you're saying you can't fully justify the resource or the money that you're asking for, then that's a very difficult road to go down, because inevitably the culture is going to be lost.
Yeah. And if you allow me to add, people calculate the saving with first S, when you sort and get things that have been forgotten for years and years, and no one is using it, and you make like an auction. Some people might use it, and it saves the company money, and you sell unneeded items, and it saves the company money as well. Another thing, when you do the second S, then you do everything is set in order and improve layout. You might have extra space to have new machines or new areas or small workshops. These things help the company to understand the benefit. But I would just say, as Ian said, it's a culture. It's hard to calculate the saving for every single thing. Okay. So I see someone is raising his hand. Would you kindly write your question, please? So it's much easier for us to write it in Q&A or in chat, and we will answer you for sure. So I see many people are having questions, so we need to move on. So Ian, someone is asking you about what is a perfect operation plan for companies who work with multiple suppliers. So do you have any experience to reflect on having multiple suppliers?
Yeah, I think it's vital that you have multiple suppliers. Yeah, for many reasons. Security of supply is one thing. You know, I mean, I will go to the iron ore business or the steel business. Iron ore is obviously one of the key ingredients for many steel producers. Scrap is another one, but raw iron ore. And people will remember in the news around about 3 years ago in Brazil, the company Vale, which is the world's largest iron ore producer, they had a dam collapse which held back the tailings slurry from one of their mines in Brazil. Killed, I think, more than 100 people, and decimated. Environmental impact was huge. Obviously, the personal impact to life is huge. And they paid multi-billion-dollar compensation, and many law cases still ongoing with that. But that had a major impact on the supply chain for many steel producers, and it's still, the impact of that is still being felt 3 years on. So you cannot rely on single source for security of supply. Many supply chain people work in supply chain, or even operations, will know that most supply chain or company policies will say you need to tender for 3 suppliers, at the minimum of 3 suppliers. So, yeah, and I have seen people get complacent with suppliers, and those suppliers can, if you know, they are cute. They are always looking for opportunities themselves. If they can feel comfortable that you are quite content or even lazy to search for alternatives or trial alternative suppliers, they will creep up their prices, above the rate of inflation. So you always need to keep suppliers on their toes, and the understanding that if they do not give you good value, whether that's in performance of their products or in price of their products, they will lose your business. So to have single suppliers, or even two or three suppliers that get too cozy with their relationship with some of the people within the plants, then you need to be wary.
Okay. And because I come from automotive industry, where we had discrete manufacturing, we invested a lot in developing our suppliers as well. We had a team for supplier quality engineers, localization, helping the suppliers and working with them, because you need to build capabilities as the suppliers. You can just, for our colleague who's asking, yes, handling a multiple supplier, you need to have your supplier quality engineers. You need to assess the production and operation and risk as the supplier, exactly as Ian said and mentioned. And you need to have a qualification process for your supplier and inspection as a source to prevent errors. So let me take the next question. ERP system or organization structure is more important for organization? He's asking you, Ian, what is the most important? ERP, like SAP, Oracle, and these systems, or the organization structure? Which is more important, ERP or the structure?
Okay, I guess the answer is they're both critical. Yeah, they're both vital, especially to a large organization. I think the ERP system is a fundamental tool. You have to have that. The organization structure, okay, you need the right people to operate the process, the plant, whatever. But as I said before, you can have the right organization structure and you can still get the wrong results. You need an ERP. You cannot survive without an ERP. So the organization structure is what it is. In many respects, you've got to have people in places, but they've got to be all working towards the same goal. So I think the ERP is a must. Organization structure, it can be informal. If you've got people working properly and working for each other, then they will make any structure work.
Okay, interesting. And I would say it's both are important, because sometimes you get a best ERP in class and terrible structures, they destroy everything. Or the other way around, a good structure without ERP, it will not be good. ERP is very important for the business. Okay. So we have another question. I see you got, mashallah, and plenty of questions. Okay. Someone is asking about digital transformation roadmap. I think it's out of our scope and we can do an event for it. I wrote you as well our website, symbios-digital.com, where we have digital journey, and we can have another event for it. Okay. So one is asking how to improve productivity of production line and decrease the losses. What is the best way and steps to enhance and improve productivity of production line and decrease the losses? Ian?
Yeah, I guess this goes back to the step one of the Toyota 8-step process. Again, beginning with clarify the problem. You need to establish and identify what are your problem areas. What do you need to improve? And again, that sounds more simple than it is in reality. Again, because of some of the things we discussed in the earlier presentation, because the delays is not always the real measure of where your delays are. It's a measure of how your delays are recorded. Some people will put standard delays in their process and not call them delays because that's part of the process. But if you're not careful, you can concentrate on what you consider to be the delays, but there's more gains to be made in tackling some of your standard turnaround delays, for example. So the 8-step methodology is a very, very good mechanism. And it's common sense. So, but it's not as easy as it sounds. You've got to have the right approach, you've got to have the right information, and if you haven't got the right information, you have to put some investment in place to get the right information. Otherwise, you will solve the wrong problems and you will not get the results that you hope to get.
Thank you, Ian. Another question, I will take it if you allow me. We need your brief advice in some points how to create operation excellence strategy or plan in case of services, not products. I work in the field of facilities management and introduce services. Thanks. So basically, it's the same way, but it's you customize the tools to services. So it's always about lead time. There is always productivity because you have your people hours against service hours which you offer. So you always look at people productivity, quality, doing things right first time. So you look at your mistakes, errors, problems, and you have your problem solving tools like the 8 steps Ian explained, or the make approach, or whatever. You always need to analyze your data and have KPIs and goal alignment for everyone. So you have to have the right measures for people, how you assess their productivity in services, how many jobs they finish in terms of how many worked hours, % of their waste, doing things right first time without errors and mistakes and rework. You look at the costs of your people and cost allocation of waste, like consuming more resources, more time, more assets. If you have, of course, facility management, you have uptime. You look at your failure rate, you look at outage, service outage times, you follow the 8 steps as Ian explained, and you try to analyze deep dive analysis and data. One of the very important things in service is standardization, that you have visual instructions, you have standards, you train people, and you have a skill matrix, and you have simple check sheets to check, are we doing the process in the right way or not, and train people to do their own quality. So you have quality from the source, because it's hard to have inspection in service. It's not like goods, it's not like products. When we look at service as well, we look at time for information retrieval. When people implement 5S in manufacturing or facilities, in services we implemented on how you have your information stored, so you can retrieve the information in less than a minute, or it's on computer in less than 20 seconds. This will force everyone to share the information. You have your visual standards, you have everything is documented, so you have access to information. Okay, you try to look at the service interruption time. In services, we look with people and resources to improve their productivity on interruption log. We ask delegates to have their interruption log, so we look how frequent they are interrupted and why, and we try to share the information and knowledge base with everyone. So you try to make it, everything is retrievable, easy, with 0 stops. And planning, of course, of resources. And we look at productivity. And even if it's in service, in production, and everywhere, we look at people morale, people ideas. How many ideas are implemented per person? And in service as well, we do something called handoff analysis, where it moves from a person to the other. There is always delay or lag or waiting between people. So we look at processes end to end, from start to end. Even in banks, for example, I can give you example from the time you submit requesting a loan till you receive it. How many days would it take? Maybe 13 days. The actual value at time is less than half day. So the tools are applied with some customization, and it gets you great results. So Ian, if I ask you about make to order manufacturing, there are people who make to stock and some things you make to order. And of course, you have been facing both.
Yep.
What is the best solution for make to order manufacturing? What is the best solution to treat the low demand, especially through Corona conditions? I think it's a tough one.
So can you just clarify the last part of the question, Shereen, please?
He talks about make to order manufacturing.
Yeah.
Now you have low demand through Corona conditions. It's low demand. So what shall we do? Just, you cannot do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, the steel industry has always been an industry that is very, it's got very high overheads. The capital equipment costs and the people costs, and many reasons. Large land space, land rental is always very high cost. So those industries need to operate at high capacity, otherwise the fixed costs go over a lot lower tonnage or whatever, and production output, so the costs inevitably go up and you become loss making. But the market is the market, especially if you're in a commodity business, which the vast majority of steel products are, and certainly in Egypt it is. There's quite a few competitors both internally and also for import. Inevitably, you have to try to manage the situation. The impact of the effects of Corona are well beyond what any business leader, any CEO can control. And it's put many companies in a unique and unprecedented situation. I guess you have to try to survive. You have to try to minimize unit costs. That will often mean closing down production, reducing the number of shifts. But ultimately, that almost inevitably is going to increase your unit cost. But you have to. It's a damage limitation exercise, which hopefully will be short-lived from now. But who knows? If it's a long-term impact, then you have to reorganize your business.
I think we need to be innovative as well and try to find some new products and some solutions which can help us work as well, because it's a survival plan.
Yeah, it needs different thinking. I mean, as we said before, many industries are fairly stable, but you cannot just accept that you do today what you did yesterday. Otherwise, you will lose ground on your competitors. But this, the period of the disruption that's been caused by the Corona pandemic, it calls for extraordinary actions. Not just small scale adjustments and improvements. It's got to look at the whole cost structure of business and acceptance that if production levels are going to be at 50, 60%, 70% of what they have been, and you can do nothing to address that or improve that, then you have to reshape your business, and that needs a lot of high-level discussion, and it's not just something that a team of continuous improvement people can address, or the culture within the plant. That's a high-level re-engineer of the business on a temporary basis.
Yes, and sometimes you need to do some alliance with your competitors to find a way to survive together.
Yeah.
And this is a top management decision. So I take next question quickly, and you take the last one. Okay.
Okay.
So what is the new, someone asking, what is the new norms with pandemic will affect on the approach of process improvement? Of course, it affected. We have been doing process improvement with people, but surprisingly, that process improvement is more popular during pandemic times. We have customers whom have some problems and they close their eyes on purpose because they seem complex and they need time. So we use the pandemic to make use of it, to solve the chronic, all the problems which people resisted for a while. And we had great success, amazing, with many of our customers. And many companies were closing their eyes on waste and problems and redundancy and inefficient processes. They were forced to do it. So I believe that pandemic made us all face the reality, and we cannot continue this way. So it's a wake-up call, and we should use it in the favor of the business and invest more in process improvement. And in our business, it has been a great time. So last question for you, Ian, because we are out of time and we already finished everyone. Someone is asking about turnover of employees. How do you manage it? How do you face it?
Yeah. Again, turnover of employees is always a concern. I guess it's going down to root cause analysis, which is, clarify the problem. Okay, the problem is you're losing employees. There's a high turnover of employees. But what are the root causes of that? So you need to really, and that's not always clear from exit interviews, for example. People will not often give the real reasons, but it's always a bad sign. It's a bad culture and difficult if your turnover is high, because it's very difficult to keep stable operation of any process. If you've got new people coming in all the time, often sometimes if you're lucky, you will get somebody maybe better than the person that has left, but often they will take with them some experience and knowledge that the new person does not have of your particular plant. So yeah, you have to keep people motivated. And again, I go back to the point that I was trying to make when asked about how do you manage maintenance people. It's, you know, it's an integrated objective. It's the whole business has to understand if the rewards from if people are not happy with their salary, then HR, the finance director, the CEO have to be made aware of the impact that that is having. You know, if your competitors, and again, the steel industry is global. There's many steel companies within Egypt. If you know, people doing a technician's job, if they look at that same technician's job in a steel plant down the road, they're paying higher, then they will say, okay, I will leave. But sometimes not. If they are happy in their environment, they're happy with their surroundings, with their colleagues, with their managers, they are motivated. Even if the salary is a little bit less, then often that will not be enough to trigger people to leave the company. So it's usually a combination of more than one reason that somebody will decide to leave. Often it is purely on salary, and you have to have on board the HR, the finance people, or the CEO to understand that, you know, that is having an impact on the process. They cannot expect a general manager responsible for manufacturing to get the best performance if they are not recruiting the right people. If they are unable to recruit the right people, then, you know, it's the job of the operations management people to make that clear and try to explain in almost. And again, it goes back to saying, how can you cost? If somebody says it's going to cost this much to give technicians a salary increase of 5%, can you tell me that's going to pay back? You cannot always guarantee those numbers, but, you know, it's often a gut feel, which is not a good thing to say. Are we still in, Shereen?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
Victor.
yeah,
We exceeded
high turnover is something that needs to be understood, because it's a danger to any company at whatever level in the organization, whether that's technician level, whether it's technical specialist level, managerial people. If you get people leaving, inevitably you're going to be in difficulty.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the quality of preparation. Thank you for sharing your experience. That's has been really great, and thank you for this. Okay.
And thanks for allowing me to present, Shereen, and hopefully people can relate to most or a lot of what I've said anyway. It maybe doesn't ring true for everybody, but that's my personal experience. And you know, you always ask yourself, if I knew then what I know now, would I have done things differently? But, you know, as I said, you cannot turn the clock back. I guess it's you gain experience, and you alter your views, your perspectives as you go through your working life.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, for preparation, and for the lessons. It's each time we have a guest we learn from, and today we learned a lot from you. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. Thank you. We shared with you our websites and our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get updates on videos. We will send you the presentation of our today's webinar via email with LinkedIn profile link for Ian. If you want to connect with him directly, ask him for anything.
Yep,
as well, we'd like to thank you all for this, and I hope you enjoyed it. So that was really good. Okay, so Ian, thank you again.
Thank you, Shereen, and goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.